Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about what's caused the crypto crash, I think that it was triggered first by the interest rates, right? The tightening of the Fed. And that put pressure on all risk assets from the beginning of the year. And I think the next catalyst was the Terra Luna meltdown, because in essence, they had $50 billion worth of Luna and UST backed by $1 billion or $2 billion of real assets. So that was very unstable, and that algorithmic stable coin was just an accident waiting to happen. It's almost like they loaned out, they borrowed $20 billion and agreed to pay 20% interest on it. And they were going to issue equity to pay the interest. So they're going to issue Luna in order to pay 20% interest on UST through that protocol. And that was an accident waiting to happen. There's no way that was sustainable. So that melted down a lot of the cryptos and resulted in the unwinding of the Three Arrows, Voyager, and Celsius bets. And I think a lot of people took a lot of inappropriate risk, right? The cryptos were unregistered securities, but then loaning out hundreds of millions of dollars without collateral or under collateralized loans amongst the crypto hedge funds, that created a margin call run. And so they ended up becoming forced sellers and liquidating positions in a panic. And that took us all the way to 30,000. And I think the Celsius thing was the straw that broke the camel's back, where Celsius just completely unwound. And you had a whole set of panicked liquidations as counterparties seized assets and seized collateral and sold it at the market. So that's what takes the market down. And now the market, I think, has probably bottomed, and it looks like it's just looking much better. It's gone from 17,000 up to 24,000 now. But I make the other fundamental point. If you're a short-term trader, this drives volatility, and this is very meaningful. And if you had a weak balance sheet, this is devastating. And if you trusted any of the crypto wildcat banks, right, it's tragic, right? Anybody that put their money in Voyager or Celsius or the like, or gave money to Three Arrows, it's awful. But if you look at the fundamentals are you have the head of the SEC endorsing Bitcoin as a commodity. You have the head of the CFTC, ready to endorse Bitcoin as a commodity. You have multiple senators endorsing Bitcoin as commodity. You've already heard Janet Yellen endorse Bitcoin as a commodity. We just saw today the head of the central bank in Brazil endorsing Bitcoin technology. And so the fundamentals are really good. We just had Larry Fink, and BlackRock, in essence, endorsing Bitcoin by saying that they're going to sell their institutional customers Bitcoin on the BlackRock private wealth management system. So what I see is Bitcoin emerging as a institutional investment grade asset being embraced by regulators, legislatures, and large-scale investors, and the entire market's been very educated by this crypto crash. Now it's obvious to people the difference between the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? The good would be a stable coin backed by cash equivalents that are transparently published every week, like Circle, right? The bad might be a tether, which it works and they're competent, but it's opaque. And the ugly is the UST that just completely melts to zero. And you could likewise say Bitcoin is the good, right? It's a digital commodity, decentralized, with no issuer, without counterparty risk, non-sovereign store of value. And then you've got all the other creatures, many of which are unregistered securities, and this has lit a fire under legislators and regulators. I think they're going to accelerate all their regulatory initiatives, and that is educating the market. And ultimately, you have hundreds of billions of dollars that wants a long-term store of value because currencies are crashing everywhere in the world. And the thing that holds anybody back from buying Bitcoin is uncertainty about its classification and the way it will be treated by regulators. So as the regulation gets clarified and as people get illustrations of the difference between Bitcoin and Luna, right? It used to be people aren't quite sure about the difference. Well, and in fact, a lot of people thought DeFi is better. You get a 20% yield on your DeFi and Bitcoin is dead money. And now they realize that, there is a counterparty risk to pursuing this. And this has educated the market, very, very effectively in a painful way, but in a rapid way. And I think it'll catalyze the maturity of the asset class and the institutionalization of Bitcoin to the benefit of the Bitcoin holders and the ecosystem. I think a great deal of the bad behavior has been flushed out. I don't think you can say everything. I think there's still a lot of unregistered securities in the crypto ecosystem, and it's undoubted that Bitcoin is cross-collateralized against some of those unregistered securities. And there's more regulation coming to anyone that's in this space, more clarity. So I think the worst of it is behind us, but I don't think that the industry has been clarified or completely rationalized yet. I think that there's thousands and thousands of cryptos that need to disappear, right? I think there's a 99% rationalization rate that needs to happen. And so I just think we went through an pretty important deleveraging. And I think that people will be much more careful in the way they view things going forward than they were a couple of years ago. I think we were in a Wild West stage the first decade of the industry, and I think we need adult supervision in the industry, and there's an entire generation of people that need to understand counterparty risk and basic risk management, and they also need to understand the difference between a security and a commodity. And with all due respect, there's still a lot of people that don't really understand the ethical or legal difference between a security and a commodity. And until they grasp the nuance of how you create a digital commodity, they're not going to grasp the way to segment the market and the right way to think about all these assets.